Yorick is one of the most unpopular champions in League of Legends. The champion's play rate is about as dead as the Gravedigger's Ghouls themselves. Sitting at under 1% for the majority of his existence, Yorick has and always will be one of the least played champions in League of Legends. He has always been considered a weaker version of other split push gods such as Fiora and Jax. But this doesn't mean that Yorick players can't excel and do well. While Yorick is a simple champion and doesn't have any fancy mechanics or great outplay potential, there's still a lot of room for growth and a lot of different things that you can do to be able to be useful on Yorick. And while there are not many Yorick players that can actually even get to Master Tier, there are still some that are occasionally able to hit Challenger. This is how to play like a Challenger.
Hey guys, my name is kcrykey. I am a Yorick 1-trick that started playing Yorick in Season 9, and currently I'm one of the most highest ranked Yorick 1-trick in EU West. And I am the only Yorick 1-trick that's gone Challenger on EUNE this season, and I did it in about 8 days. Once in a while, I might get some surprise remarks, like there's actually a Yorick 1-trick in this elo or Yorick 1-trick XD. Funny enough, since the champion's barely picked, I get junglers asking me about how my matchup will work out since they have no clue. When it comes to in-game, I don't type anything and I'm perma-mute all. And I started doing that since I came back to League in Season 9, so I don't really know if my teammates or the enemy is flaming me for playing Yorick. The main thing I've learned about being a one-trick pony, specifically for a champ that isn't too strong in the current meta, is how strong macro is when it comes to climbing. Personally, I think you can get Challenger by just having close to perfect macro in every aspect of the game, even if you have the mechanics of a platinum player. And funny enough, that applies to real life. Extensive knowledge in any field can eventually lead to success. So I started playing League in Season 6, and this was my first PC game, so basically I had no mechanics. So I stuck to basic champs like Nasus, Garen, Old Revelia and Volibear. I was looking for quick healer, so I checked up the Flavor of the Month champ, and I thought that since they can pilot the champ pretty successfully, maybe I can pull it off too. And after 1 month of playing the champ, I got Masters, and then I just fell in love with the mechanics of the champion eventually.
So what makes kcrykey better than other Yorick players in Diamond and below? In past seasons, what some Yorick players would do is set their maiden in a side lane and allow that maiden to push the opposite side of the map that they were pushing on. This allowed you to apply lane pressure to top and bot while your team 4-manned mid. While you can certainly still do this strategy, it's got a lot more weaknesses. Not having maiden and losing her in a team fight significantly reduces the value of Yorick in a 5v5. It essentially cuts your champion in half. However, what you can do is use the ghouls themselves as a placeholder for your maiden.
When it comes to split pushing with Yorick, he's very unique in this aspect, as he is the only champ that can split push 2 lanes with high proficiency. Funny enough, I remember when DongHuaP flamed Slayer for doing this like 2 years ago, but Slayer was somewhat right. Sometimes there can be a fiesta happening and you need to go mid and protect the towers. Before you do that, you want to make sure you have 4 ghouls set up in the top lane and the bot lane, and those ghouls will push out the lanes as if someone's there. And when the ghouls do last hit minions in the side lane, you get the gold and the XP. So somewhat like passive income, you're just gaining income without trying, and you're getting an XP lead without anyone realizing. And on top of that, they are pushing towards the towers and applying pressure to towers, so eventually the towers can go down as well. When it comes to early game, the way you play laning phase changes between matchup to matchup, and on what room page you are running. Most of the time you want to play passive level 1 and 3. Your goal is to use your Q to last hit the minions and build up graves, and if you do have the grasp room page, you can use the grasp Q to poke down the enemy from time to time. Overall, you want to maintain at least a 3 to 4 grave setup. All you have to do is land your E, activate the 4 ghouls, auto attack Q, possibly trap them in, and you'll win your trades level 3 to 5. Like I said, that could change depending on the matchup. Let's say Aurelia, you start gaining control level 6 onwards when Yorick has Maiden. You want to activate Maiden while slow pushing towards the enemy, so you can shove the wave in. Once you shove the wave in, you can go and get deep wards in their jungle, possibly get a free scuttle crab. If mid's over push, you can probably gank mid lane, or if you see the enemy jungler in the opposite side of the map, you can possibly take his camps and just maintain a high CS per minute. However, like I said, all-ins do change depending on the matchup, so you need to understand matchups before you can confidently all-in certain situations. And if you're not too confident, you just need to CS and keep a high CS per minute, because Yorick shines in the mid game, not the laning phase. The mid game is Yorick's power spike. At this point, you should have a Trinity Force and you're building towards Sterex or Death Dance, or even better, if you have 2 full items, which will be Trinity Force and Sterex, let's say, you'll be at the strongest at this point, so you need to take advantage of your strongest point of the game. You can do this by forcing 1v1s with Maiden. Usually, your jungler won't take the Krugs or the Gromp, so make sure you take them from both your jungler and the enemy's jungler, so you can deny them XP as well. And you'll just be the highest level in the game, and you'll have the most gold, so you can carry even harder if you keep taking everything.
When raising your ghouls, make sure to hit your E before you actually do it. What a lot of bad Yorick players will do is they will raise their ghouls for no reason. Most of the time, the ghouls won't aggro anything other than minions, and you'll have a slow pushing lane. It could potentially break a freeze, and it could potentially set you up to be ganked by the enemy jungler. But by hitting your E and immediately raising your ghouls right afterwards, it guarantees that your ghouls will be hitting the enemy champion. By holding your ghouls and your E, it also allows you to guarantee that you have good trade back if an enemy decides to all-in you. One of Yorick's most unique abilities is his W. It is one of the few terrain creating abilities in League of Legends. Yet most people only use W in a single simple way, trapping or stopping the enemy champion. But kcrykey has different ways of getting value out of this ability.
What also makes me different compared to the average Yorick player is the way I use my W. Now, if you use a W at face value, it's a very simple ability. Most Yorick players will just use it to box in their enemy, and then they dish out all their damage. Yes, that is one way of using it, but there's many other ways of using it. Like, one way I love using my W, and most players do not expect this, is using it as a defensive tool against champs like Mordekaiser. If you are in Mordekaiser ult, simply box him in won't work out too well because you can flash over it or maybe auto attack it really quickly. I would use it in a way where if I position it, I can run around it and kite around it, and if he flashes into the W. And most Mordekaisers don't expect this. I played against a rank 1 player, I played against high challenger players, I played against GM players in EOS. Every time I use my W in this way, they always get outplayed by it. It's very easy. Just use a W in a way you can kite around them. You could also use your W to predict flash. Let's say you're playing against a Renekton that can dash forward and you need to put it in a way where if he flashes into the wall. I would flash forward, use my W ahead of him, so when he flashes, he goes into the wall. You could also use it to stop, let's say, ults like Yone ult or maybe King going through the wall. And another important note you should know is that the edge of the W can displace the enemy. So let's say if a Shen ults or if someone's TPing, you can cancel that by using the edge of the W.
Team fighting on any split push juggernaut is going to be difficult. Tanks have more CC, mages have more range in AoE. It's very difficult to be useful in a 5v5 when your champion is designed for a 1v2. So how does kcrykey approach one of the most difficult aspects of Yorick?
When it comes to team fighting, people assume that Yorick is useless, but most of the time, if you can use your utility correctly, which is your W, you can be very useful, especially with Maiden and Ghouls. Let's say you want to pill for the AD carry and you have Nasus trying to kill your backline. You can be the guy that can lock him down and make sure your AD can peel around him correctly. Or if you want to dive the enemy backline, let's say you want to take down a immobile carry like Twitch or Syndra, all you have to do is land your E and W, and at that point there'll be a sitting duck for your team to just go out and burst them down. I find that the best way to utilize Yorick in team fighting if you want to carry it is finding flanks into the backline, so it's even easier to land your E and W. What makes my Yorick different to the average diamond Yorick is not exactly too big in a mechanical standpoint, but I feel like the average diamond Yorick can't utilize the macro aspects. When it comes to the mid game, they're not really multitasking in terms of supporting teammates and split pushing. They're otherwise fully committed to the side lane, or they are just A-ramming at mid, being useless most of the time. Of course, you need to be at the side lane sometimes as well, but when it comes to split pushing, they don't understand that being overly pushed with zero vision will lead into many deaths. Something I see amongst many Yorick players is that they have a lot of deaths. The general rule of thumb is applying a lot of pressure when objective is up on the opposite side of the map. So let's say Drake is up, if you apply a lot of pressure to tier 2 top, that's good. You applying pressure properly will lead the enemy to come to you and your team can get to objectives. But usually the Yorick player is applying pressure for no reason sometimes when there's nothing up or there's zero wards, your teammates are not in position to do anything, and then they just die and then they turn to a detriment at that point and just keep feeding the enemy, which is pointless.
For your build, start Corrupting Potion as your first item, then go directly into Sheen for easier procs onto your Q, then Phage plus Boots. If you're in a 1v1 matchup, you want to finish Ninja Tabbies before you finish your Triforce. Go into Steric's Gauge and then Bramble's Vest. Your core items are almost always going to be Triforce and Steric's Gauge. They give you the best 2-item power spike that Yorick can have. If you are insanely ahead, you can get Death Stance instead. For your third item, you can tech Executioner's Culling before you buy another real item. Then pick a tank item based on the enemy composition, either Deadman's, Randuin's, or Spirit Visage. If you're extremely ahead, you can also go for Titanic Hydra for an easier split push. And for your last item, you can go either GA or Stoneplate. For your abilities, max Q, E, then W. For your runes, this Grasp page is the one that gives you the most lane presence. It allows you to survive really easily, it gives you movement speed to kite, it gives you plenty of sustain with Biscuits and Grasp, allowing you to do short trades and scale into your level 6. Alternatively, if you're in a matchup with a lot of extended trading, you can take this Conqueror page instead. Since you're going to be split pushing and healing with your Q, Overheal is much more useful in a 1v1 situation than Triumph is. While this page gives you more overall damage and healing, It's not more consistent than the grass page because you need to be up against a juggernaut such as Darius or Garen to be able to make full effect of it.
Yorick is a beautiful champ, and despite him having a quote-unquote low skill ceiling, he has many unique mechanics and many win cons that only he can provide. Don't get it twisted, even though he's easy to pick up, he is not a one-dimensional champ, and if you want to pilot him to his full potential, you need to be a true 5-head gentleman and earn your LP through sheer intellect. Yorick is the champ for you. You can check me out on YouTube and see more of my Yorick content, YouTube/kcrykey, or you can watch me live. I'm live pretty often as well on Twitch TV/kcrykey. Thanks for watching, guys, and thank you DongHuaP for hosting me, and yeah, I'll see you guys.